right. Now, hi, here's what we're going to do. When you should all have the list of readers. I'm going to put that in the chat box right now. And you don't have to wait for me. So when I'm done talking, Linda, well, I guess I should tell you you can go ahead and introduce. When Linda's done reading, when Linda's done and Yakov is done reading, Alan, if you would just want to hop on, you can. Otherwise, I'll remind you. But don't feel like you have to wait for me, is what I want to say.
Okay.
All right. Are we recording?
My age, I invite and remind.
You just jump right in there. Do whatever you want, okay? Okay. Welcome, everyone, to our alumni reading. And I think we're celebrating 20-ish years of the Shaindy Rudoff Graduate Program in Creative Writing. One of the reasons that I wanted to do this reading is because I'm not quite sure exactly when we start counting. So maybe you guys can help us clarify. We can come up with the number together. I'm Marcella Shulak, and it is my honor to direct this miraculous program, which was the dream of Shaindy Rudoff, and which she actualized along with her co-visionaries, Michael Kramer, Alan Hoffman, and Linda Zisquit, along with the literature faculty who were incredibly helpful and generous with their time and advice. Michael Kramer is not able to join us today, but I have a message that he would like me to pass on to you. It is a joy, though, for me to tell you that Alan and Linda are both with us tonight and will be introducing our first readers. Michael, unfortunately, is observing his mother-in-law's first yahrzeit and is on a Zoom call with the family. However, he's given me the following message. These graduates mean a lot to me, and more importantly, to the program and to Shaindy's legacy. Without them, the program could never have gotten off the ground, could never have succeeded and flourished. Their talent, their willingness to develop it under the guidance of our faculty and with the input of their fellows made it all possible. Please extend to them my deepest appreciation and admiration. And a few minutes later, he texted me again to say that he hasn't seen or heard from you, some of you, in a very long time, and he valued you very much, especially during the early years when we had no idea if we could succeed. And I don't know about you guys, but whenever I hear somebody hasn't seen me for a while, it usually means I owe someone a phone call. So, just keep that in mind. What I want to say now is that our readers tonight, not only do they represent our pre-program all the way down to our very most recent graduate, but these readers have all recently published a new book in the last year, or a significant article, essay, or they have a first book forthcoming. So as I said, they represent the years of the program when it was just getting started all the way to this past October. The second reason we wanted to have this reading is that we miss you and we wanted to see you all again. Stay in touch. Now, without further ado, I'm going to be introducing people as we go through, but without further ado, I'll ask Linda Zisquit, our founding poetry coordinator and soul of the poetry program, to introduce Yakov. And I just want to say, Linda, when I first began to teach, everyone remarked at how inspiring and encouraging Linda Zisquit was, how helpful her comments, and how she would always go that extra mile for her students. She's going to introduce Yakov Azriel.
Thank you. You can hear me? Yes? Okay. Yakov is in the very first year of the program. Yakov Azriel has published 5 full-length books of poetry in the U.S., the latest one being Closet Sonnets, The Life of G.S. Crown, published by Sheep Meadow Press in 2017. In 2023, another book entitled Shadow in the Closet is going to be published. In addition, over 900 poems have been published in print and online magazines, and his poetry has won 27 awards or commendations in international poetry competitions. Yakov, are you there?
I hope that everybody can hear me. Yes? Okay, it says Chava Azriel, but I'm not Chava Azriel. That's my wife. Okay. I'm going to read the two poems from my latest book that came out a few years ago, and one poem from the new book. Okay, they're all sonnets, and if I could just say something is that I found I'm from the very first cycle of the workshops, the very first one, and it was very inspiring. It really had, and one of the things that I learned was the importance of sonnets. Okay. Poem, the first one is called The Secret Garden. The most essential thing, the inner core of someone's life, is something no one knows except for him. His secret grows within a courtyard, lacking gate or door, a garden only he can enter or unlock, as no one else may glimpse the rose he cultivates, whose fragrance he'll disclose to no one, now or evermore. He's cautious, fearful lest a stranger try to pluck it, knowing how a flower dies when touched, this flower he can't show or bring to anyone at all. For he would die, his garden sown with salt, if someone tries uprooting it, the most essential thing. The second poem is called Openness. Open your heart and mind. Open your hand to shake my hand. Open the books you close. Open the curtains that drape the walls. Who knows what you may find? Perhaps a concert grand piano, 5 harps, 10 drums. Perhaps a band of jazz musicians. Open the sea flows all night. Open the wild orchid which grows luxuriant amidst the desert's sand. Don't close the door again. Don't slam it in my face. Don't shut the window. I would like to breathe fresh air for once. Don't lock the door and throw away the key. I am a man like other men. Don't block the sky. Open your heart and mind. Open your rock. The third poem and the last poem is I have a book that's supposed to come out later this year, God willing. And the name of this poem is Why Language, which is a little bit ironic because that's what I'm dealing with is language. Okay. That's a private joke. Okay. Why language? Shadow. What use is language? Throw it out the window. Throw it down the stairs. Why words if words are arrows, daggers, spears, knives, bayonets, swords? Let cyclones blow all words apart. Let oceans ebb and flow till words are washed away and drown. Who cares if language dies? For words are wolves and bears. Let language freeze to death in ice and snow. Throw away the words we speak. Throw them off a cliff. Smash their bones. Throw them into a stream where they will disappear. The door is locked. I have no key. Why language if it means we cannot share the night or dream we see the moon or find stars anywhere? That's it. And
Thank you so much. That was really, really wonderful to hear. I've been meaning to read your work for a long time. Now, Alan Hoffman, who is our founding director, acting director, and founding fiction coordinator, and in so many ways, the soul of the program, such charisma, such a force of personality, and so many students who just speak so highly of you to this day, Ellen. I'm so pleased that you were able to join us. So would you do us the honor of introducing Daniel Weizmann? You'll have to unmute yourself. Alan, you're muted.
Well, yes, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
So much for charisma. Thank you for your kind words, Marcel. Congratulations to all those who are publishing books, and I'm very confident that they will certainly be joined by many more of our wonderful students. To be perfectly transparent, I am not Stephanie Hoffman. I too am using my wife's computer. And also in terms of transparency, I'm introducing Daniel Weizmann. He was a student of mine and one of the few students from whom I accepted a gift. He gave me the complete discs of Mad Magazine. And thank you, Daniel. To this day, it's right up there along with my Shas, and I appreciate it. Daniel Weizmann was an exceptionally fine student, exceptionally fine writer. He was also a very extraordinarily creative and appreciated participant in the seminar. He really was. And we go by publishing a bit too much and sometimes the participation in the program of what students offer to one another and to all of us in the seminars is something that we certainly, who were instructing, and I'm sure who do instruct, appreciate that. And Daniel was very special in that regard as well. Daniel Weizmann was born in Ashkelon and raised in Hollywood, where he became a teen punk journalist with the nom de plume Shredder, writing for Flipside Fanzine, the LA Weekly, and others. He went on to become an editor in New York City, working on books such as Timothy Leary's Last Collection and D.D. Ramon's autobiography. He returned to Israel at the age of 37 and entered the Shaindy Rudoff program a few years later, studying under Risa Miller, myself, and his thesis advisor was Jonah Gant. His debut mystery novel, The Last Songbird, is scheduled to be published by Melville House this May. Daniel, a pleasure to see you. Congratulations, and I look forward to your reading.
Great to see you, Professor Hoffman, and all these other faces that I really miss. You know, I guess the best thing I can say about the program is that it was not only protective and fortifying very much while I was there, but something about what happened there I was able to take with me. And it's been, I think, over 10 years now. And I still think about it, and I really miss the energy that we had as a group there. So I'm just going to jump right in and read the first chapter from The Last Songbird, which is, like you said, coming out in May. The night Annie Linden disappeared, my world spun out with double time speed. I was 37, she was 73. I was a Lyft driver and she was a pop icon, once. She was my pickup and I was running late. I had already failed as a songwriter, as a song plugger, a pop critic, a recording engineer. No way could I afford to flop out as a Lyft driver. Pacific Coast Highway opened up and I shot through the gap, gunned it for the last stretch of Zuma, trying to make up for lost minutes. One lone cop car idled about 100 yards from Annie's estate. I thought nothing of it. Then I pulled the silver 16 Jetta with the rear dent onto the gravel loop and saw the whirling red and blue lights. The gate was wide open. Two more cop cars idled. Potted purple catmint wavered in their hot white beams. A policeman got out of one of those black and whites and approached with the look of a man ready for violence. Big guy, but short, built like a brick oven. Name, Adam Zantz. Who you here to see, Mr. Zantz? I pointed at my light up lift amp. Ms. Linden, she's my regular. She just called for an 8 o'clock pickup. Called? About an hour ago, we're off app. Well, how does that work, Mr. Zantz? She has my number. She wouldn't use the app after our first ride. He grumbled. You don't look like a Lyft driver. I wasn't sure what a Lyft driver was supposed to look like. Me, I was a 5'8" skinny Jew with a big schnoz and eyes that telegraphed every damn thing I was feeling, present worry included. I zipped up my black hoodie as his Motorola rang. He turned his back to me. Yeah, I'm here at Beachfront, the Linden Estate. Yeah, her. There's a 187 on the premises, beach adjacent, maybe more. My heart thumped. Goose flesh. The cop went on. I got 2 guys inside, so send another 2 units. Huh? No, surveillance went down about 40 minutes ago. He signed off, then gave me the glare. You know this place? Pretty well, yeah, I said. There's a security man named Troy by the main gate. Troy's booth was a Tudor octagon of one-way mirrors that made it look like one of those zoetrope whirly gigs. Too small for anyone. Way too small for Troy. So this is where you plan to pick up Ms. Linden, right here? No, I said, she stays down at the beach house. There's actually 4 properties here: pool house, guest house, beach house, and the main house she doesn't visit too much. Why's that? He seemed jumpy. She likes the beach house, I said. It's small, manageable, conducive to the creative process. Listen, you gonna tell me what the heck's going on here? Why don't you get creative and call her now on your phone? I tried. No answer. I didn't leave a message. I looked up at the cop, held back worst case scenarios. I had gotten her text at 7:24. AZ, beach house, 8 p.m., come to my arms. Classic Annie corniness. She sent lyrics in text. Let's chase the moonlight. We sell seashells. When the jungle shadows fall. But tonight was different. Only days before, she had said, I'm almost ready for that thing that we talked about. I thought maybe come to my arms was code for let's go look into those people that I wanted you to find. Then again, it just as easily could have been, get over here, let's cruise, I'm restless. Vagary, typical Annie, but my pulse was racing. Let me try her PA, I said. He mostly stays in the guest house. I let out that Bix Geldon had been recently fired since he'd been fired and rehired so many times. For all I knew, he was in the main house, but his line just rang and rang too. This time I left a message. Bix, it's Adam. Can you let Annie know that I'm out in the loop? I shot the cop a questioning look and he nodded. So I went on. Also, there's some police out front here, so I think there's been some trouble. Get back to me ASAP, all right? I hung up and shrugged. How come you're so sure the PA's on the premises, the cop said. He pretty much lives here, I said. 2 more police cars screeched into the loop. Now we were a fleet, 5 vehicles strong. Take a ride down the hill, the cop said. Show us where you plan to pick up Ms. Linden. You got it. For his compadres, he waved a finger to the sky and moved back to his car. I put the Jetta in drive. We caravaned down the long, sloping private road to the beach house. Gate, already open. The ocean roared and crashed its looping rhythm. White sand and gray-black Pacific horizon came into view. The lights were out in her place. No candles. That was not unusual, though, since she wrote songs in the pitch dark. Outside, the lonely hemp hammock hung between the sloping palms, empty and jiggling in the cool night breeze. I stopped the car. A different cop came out and said, hang back, and they entered, hands on gun belts. From my vantage point, I could see their shadows casing the place in the dark. My mind was racing, trying to outrace my pulse. No Annie, no Geldon, 187, what the? The deck chairs were moist from fog, the heat lamps off. Annie's estate was one of about 24 mansions along the point that lined up in front of the mighty Pacific like giant beasts stopped in their tracks. Other homes had long jutting staircases down to the beach. That wouldn't do for a 73-year-old chain smoker. I was about 1 minute from panic with my hand on the inside door handle when I heard and then saw another ambulance coming down the hill behind us. 2 people in some kind of a red uniform that I didn't recognize got out, a guy and a girl with a stretcher. Oh, fuck. A 5th cop car screeched up and an older man in a Patagonia windrunner got out of the passenger seat with the administrative stride of a non-listener. Can we rope this off already? You got a showdown on PCH, eyeballs everywhere. Chief, this guy's from Uber. He says Annie Linden called him for a ride. This is the Annie Linden, I take it? The chief asked, still acting like I wasn't there. The young cop said, Annie who? You kidding me, the chief said. Only the greatest songbird of our time. Your time, Chief, the young cop said, and his partners tittered. The chief ignored them, turned to me like he trusted me more than his underlings, even though I was closer to their age than his. You ever meet staff here? Yes, sir. His tone went grave. Would you be willing to identify a body? I nodded, and we hoofed it back up the hill to the idling ambulance. They opened the door and pulled the sheet off Troy's young and shocked face. A wave of anguish crashed down upon me. His name is Troy, I said, the muscles of my jaw pulling into a deep scowl. Troy Banks. He's ground security, or was. You have a way of contacting Ms. Linden at this time? I can try her private line again. The chief gestured to the beach house. Let's go inside. He made it sound like I was invited. Raised off the sand by a smooth wooden deck, the bungalow lay still and placid as the ocean wasn't. By instinct, my hands reached to flip the indoor lights. The simple living room stared back at us, looking empty and dumbfounded. Just an innocent little studio apartment that had no idea it was attached to a chateau on the beach. They cut me loose at midnight. Sleep was out of the question. I headed back down PCH, radio off, a new melody, looping, distant, driving me on, driving me mad. The jukebox id was at it again. The jukebox id was telling me she's not there. The jukebox id was saying Annie had secrets, secrets that bring tears. Not everybody had the jukebox id, but if you had it, you knew it. Song fragments spun in your head nonstop. You didn't solicit, they sprang from nowhere, little 45s collapsing onto the turntable of your soul, and then the needle drops. Please don't bother trying to find her. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel. And if you want to hear the ending, you'll have to buy the book. I would like to now introduce Joanna Chen. Joanna Chen was in the first group of poets to graduate after I arrived at Bar Ilan as a visiting writer in 2008 and full-time in 2010. And she was one of my first advisees. She'd also studied with Linda Zisquit and first began translating Agi Michol in Linda's poetry translation workshop. Joanna Chen's literary translations include Agi Michol's Less Like a Dove, the Cheersman's books, Jonathan Berg's Frayed Light, Weizmann Poetry Series, a 2019 finalist for the Jewish National Book Awards, and Meir Shaleb's My Wild Garden, Notes from a Gardener's Eden, from Penguin Random House 2020. She teaches literary translation at the Helicon School of Poetry and regularly contributes interviews and lyric essays to the Los Angeles Review of Books. You can find more of her work at Guernica, Narratively, Mantis, among others. Tonight, Joanna will be reading an excerpt from Israeli author Meir Shaleb's latest novel, Don't Tell My Brother.
Thank you so much, Marcella. And before I read, I'd like to thank everyone, faculty and students at the Shaindy Rudoff graduate program for your support, especially Marcella, my advisor, and Linda Zisquit, whose translation workshop I attended. Reading here tonight is like coming home, and I have to tell you, it's a pretty good home to come back to. I'm going to be reading from chapter 3 of Don't Tell Your Brother by Meir Shaleb, a book that came out recently in Hebrew. And I'll just give you a little bit of background to it. Itamar Diskin is an extremely good-looking and extremely short-sighted man who lives in the US but makes yearly trips to Israel for eye exams and reunions with his brother Boaz. On one of these visits, during an alcohol-fueled evening, he tells his brother about a woman he met 20 years earlier. In doing so, he reveals the love he still has for his old girlfriend, Michal. My name, Itamar, was given to me by my mother, and she was meticulous about stressing the final syllable with great aplomb. But most of my friends and acquaintances, and they are not many, I must admit, call me Ita. Ita with the stress on the first syllable, like Peter. This is what Boaz called me when he was 2 years old, and the childish name stuck to me. When introducing myself to someone, I take care to present myself as Itamar with the pompous pronunciation my mother was so punctilious about, and I include my last name as well, Diskin, which suits my brother and his father well, but less me and her. Most new acquaintances, when they hear my nickname, prefer that. My mother, who took pride in the name she chose for me, admonished anyone who shortened it to Ita. Destroyers and demolishers, I give you such a beautiful name, and they've cut it in half. But eventually she found a surprising solution. Firstly, for its very nature, and secondly, because it was a compromise, a trait that usually was not part of her repertoire. She announced that she would be prepared to accept this nickname if it were written with a double T, as in I-T-T-A, rather than a single one. It's funny, I told her once when I was already an adult, and it doesn't really matter. After all, no one either writes or reads this name. They only speak it or hear it. Nevertheless, she insisted, you'll get older, you'll get letters girls will write you, and whatever is written eventually becomes a reality. And she was so resolute and insistent that even today, years after her death, as I try to write this story, I write my name with a double T, as she demanded. You didn't tell me you were writing something, Boaz interrupted. Because it's not really writing. I'm documenting a few stories and pictures, so I won't forget, that's all. Unlike our mother, I never objected to the nickname Boaz gave me, nor did its spelling bother me. In general, I steer away from difficulties and disputes. I like the quiet life, in which crooked edges are smooth and waves are low. But as I grew, an insufferable adjective was tagged to my nickname. Beautiful. So, beautiful Ita is what I am called when I am not present. And anyone who calls me that to my face does so to rattle me or to watch me swallow my anger, abashed and inhibited. As Mom used to say, Itamar is the calf offered by Abraham to the angels, a calf, tender and good. He doesn't argue and he doesn't make problems. Whatever, I said, since I neither liked that definition nor the explanation she gave for it. But Boaz did not let up and even quoted the continuation of her words. He's so tender and good. Sometimes life will be tough and difficult for him. It's not tough for me, nor is it in the least difficult, Boaz, I scoffed. I am not the only one to have an adjective tagged to his or her name. There are those who are referred to as tall, wicked, or cute. But I received my nickname not only because I was good looking, but because my other characteristics are not particularly remarkable. I am far more handsome than I am clever or stupid, for example, or daring or cowardly. And most of the people I know are wiser or more aloof, more bad-tempered or compromising than I, more amusing or quicker off the mark. But all these characteristics need the right opportunity and timing in order to be discovered. Whereas you beauties, as Michal used to say, you have this flag that waves above you, defining and determining before you even open your mouth. You're beautiful too, I said. You're much more beautiful than I am, she laughed. And when we're out together in the street, it's you everyone stares at. Aha, but I'm merely beautiful on the outside, I said. Whereas you have 1,000 layers and you're so clever and far more special. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Joanna. Don't tell Meir Shalev or David Grossman, but I always think that Joanna's translations are at least as good as the originals. Our next reader is Shoshana. Shoshana Sarah, as we call her, but I think, are you just going by Shoshana tonight? Shoshana,
Fine, either way.
Shoshana is the founder of Poets of Babel, a multilingual poetry club, and is it's complicated it's a complicated relationship with Jerusalem. Her latest work Her latest works appear in Bekol Ram, the Poetry Slam Israel Anthology, Identity Theory, the Spotlong Review, and Binding Genres. Her manuscript, Not on the Map, a hybrid lyric memoir, was recognized as a Tzank Books Longlist honoree and is forthcoming with alternating current press. She's a voice actor, spoken word teacher, content writer, dancer, and Feldenkrais teacher in training. It gives me great pleasure to ask Shoshana Sarah, to read for you now from her forthcoming manuscript.
Thank you. I'll be reading two small sections from my lyric essay that's called Bluish, which is a portmanteau of blue, black and Jewish. The first section is called, What Was Your Name Before Shoshana? What was your name before Shoshana? In the States, I was the only one with the name Shoshana. I always had to spell it and used to get teased for it. In Israel, I never have to spell it, but it's a grandma's name. No Israeli my age is called Shoshana, only aunties and Anglo-Jews. Because it's weird, my people try to give me nicknames, but I can't stand any of them. No, you can't call me Shoshi or Shosh or Shoshke. There's the rare person I won't correct because I like them so much, whose renaming doesn't immediately make me cringe. I love the way a woman once explained it to me when I couldn't pronounce her name and tried to shorten it. No, you're not cutting off the spirit of my name. My mother named me Shoshana after her best friend in high school. My father named me Sarah after his favorite sister who died young. I learned how to write my name in Hebrew elementary school from the teacher with the black hair and blue eyes. I didn't even know what a Jew was then. I wrote it down so many times until I had it memorized. Sometimes I wonder if I should try to find her, the Shoshana I was named after. My mother thinks her name was something like Rosenbush, that her full name meant Rose Rosebush. But she probably got married, or maybe she changed it to a Hebraicized version when making Aliyah. Or maybe she came to Israel and went back. Or maybe we lived down the street from each other. We were in line together at the Makolet. She smiled at one of my babies on the bus. What would she say about her namesake who left for Israel just like she did around the same age? Can you really imprint a path upon a person just like that, just by naming them? Shoshana means rose, or so I thought until I learned it actually means lily, or both, or more. Even the scholars aren't sure. Of course, mistranslated, it is the only thing that is mine. I chose my children's names carefully. 1, beauty, splendor, glory. 2, teacher, preacher, collector of songs. 3, people of God, a high place. 4, from the East, ancient. Each time I was renaming myself. Second section is called On Being Gumbo, Beyond Bluish. And I had gumbo this weekend, so I felt inspired to do this one. Watha says she's had a question about me rolling around in her mind for a long time. I never understood what it was you were looking for in Judaism that you couldn't find anywhere else. Why have you never taken anything from African cultures? I asked Daddy, do you believe in God? He said, it's not something you speak of, it's something you do. Everything you did from daycare was holy. God is what direction you take. It doesn't matter. There are many directions. Just choose one. God is in every one of those groups of people I've been with. I'm not religious anymore. It doesn't matter what you are not. You are there, so that's what you is. Gumbo soup. She's got everything in it. It's gumbo. That's why I have so many seasonings. She's got everything and let her work it out. So you're calling me gumbo? I used to go to every church there was and was involved with all people. There was nowhere I didn't go. I'd go to church even though I was reading the Holy Quran. They still send me urban Christian ministries pamphlets, those Italians I used to live with. I asked Wafa why she fasts for Ramadan, since she's not religious in any other aspect. I wondered if it was similar to the atheist Jew who would fast for Yom Kippur. She tells me that she believes there are good principles to learn from Ramadan, such as delayed gratification, and the charity one is supposed to give toward the last 10 days. On Novigod, my friend Ivanka teases me that I've converted into the Russian-speaking community. I say, I must have been Russian in a past life. At Putin, the Russian pub in Jerusalem, Yulia leans in while we were dancing to yell in my ear above the music. Do you know what I like about you? You can fit in anywhere. All I want to do is look outside of my skin instead of at it. Ukrainian, Togolese, African-American Israeli, Ethiopian Israeli, Palestinian Americans whose friends tell them they act white. No, it's not just in the States. The secular Muslim Moroccan who passes for Moroccan Mizrahi Jew or an Arab Israeli. The Russian Israelis who pass for native Israeli because they're olive skin with brown hair, brown curly hair, the half Jews, the half Israelis. Everyone I have ever loved is a half-breed, an immigrant, a nomad, black sheep, neither here nor there, a straddler of worlds, belonging nowhere and everywhere. We adopt each other. We find home in each other's eyes. A boy from a lost tribe is looking for his people, who have all been scattered, swallowed up by other nations. I am that way, and I found you.
Thanks so much. Now, I want to point out that Shoshana, Sarah, Batnadiv, and Geula, who's also in attendance, were all studying together, and it was such an amazing, just eclectic and electric class. So I hope that we continue to have such classes in the future. Thanks so much for just being you. Batnadiv Hakarmi is a writer and visual artist who currently resides in Jerusalem. Her work has been published in Poet Lore, Arc Poetry, and Radar Poetry, and her chapbook, The Love of Mortal Beings, is upcoming from Kelsey Books.
Hi, everybody. Sorry, I'm actually going to take these out because I'm hearing myself in a really, really strange way. Can you hear me this way? Okay. So yes, thank you to Marcella and Linda. A lot of the works in this chapbook started out in your classes. And I'm going to read one poem and one piece of hybrid from this collection. So, when my grandfather was Jacob, he stole the birthright from my grandmother. He didn't mean to, but he loved his mother, and my grandmother was so tired unto death. He knew the right to the firstborn's name goes to the mother. Let's split it, he said, with nothing to barter. Half of your mother, half of mine. She refused. He took. He knew even then that a thief is fined twice. A fee he could not pay, a fury he could not flee. Stealing the birthright. The rabbi told him not to do it. It belongs to the mother. Let her name the child. Zaidi said, but who knows if I'll have another? The rabbi said, I bless you that you will have another daughter. Let your wife have the name. Zaidi sat silent. He seemed to be listening. He always did as he was told. When Rebbetzin Bloch said that the first birth goes slowly, that the baby would not be born for hours, he listened. He went to yeshiva to daven. Bubby remained standing outside the yeshiva door. The debate began. How would she get to the hospital on Shabbos? Labor had just started. Should she walk? Call an ambulance? The rabbi still hovered. Pointing at his wife, he said, you take her, now. The debate stopped. Rebbetzin Bloch drove Bubby to the hospital. Zaidi stayed in the yeshiva through Musaf. They told him not to worry, it will take time. He listened and stayed for Kiddush, then set off on foot. He always listened to what people told him, like a good little yeshiva bacher, my grandmother would say. They said it goes slow, so he stayed for Shacharis, then Torah reading, then Musaf, Kiddush, herring, and kugel. My grandmother gave birth alone. Holding her baby, all she wanted to do was feed her, fill her up till she brimmed with milk as Bubby had never been filled. The nurses patiently explained to the ignorant immigrant that formula is much more sanitary, that it is scientifically designed to be healthy for babies. Bubby was stubborn. She found a doctor who spoke Russian and who was also ignorant. He agreed to sneak her the baby. She held the tiny creature she could not believe had come from her body, could not believe had nestled and turned in her shrunken belly. Even when Bubby had stretched herself over the Maharal's grave begging for a child, she hadn't believed she would hold life in her hand. She had starved for so long she no longer mensurated. Now her body was dripping food. The baby gripped her breast with 5 perfect fingers. She remembered her mother's fingers as she lit the candles, how her swollen hands had gleamed, suddenly beautiful. Mine, she thought. Ziporach Yana. my little bird brought to life. This was the one gift she could give her mother, abandoned in a beggar's grave at the outskirts of Moscow. My grandfather finally arrived. He watched the small curled form in awe. He remembered the last time he had seen his mother. I'm sorry. God, I practiced this and it's still happening. It was right after his sister's wedding. As he prepared to return to yeshiva, his mother had clung to him and cried. I'll be back, he assured her. 4 weeks later, she was dead, shot in the head by the Weizmann. He tried not to imagine the slow topple of her body into a ditch. In his mind, she was still clothed, gleaming in wedding finery. Sometimes he could feel her tears stinging his dry eyes. Chasya Miriam, he crooned to the sleeping infant. Chasya, God shows care. Miriam, who watched her brother as he floated on the waters, the hidden eyes that never gave up. The rabbi told him to give in. The rabbi told him to let go. My grandfather always listened. He could hear the echo of his mother weeping. All of Israel waited for Miriam in the desert. All of Israel sat in mourning when she died. And look, God had showed his everlasting care in the little baby that guzzled from his wife. Let's split the name, he said. She'll be both Tzipora and Chasya. Babi refused. She didn't believe in halves. Her beautiful baby with her 10 fingers, 10 toes, her milky skin was a perfect whole. It's dangerous to call down the destiny of those who died young, Zaidi tried. Better to make a change. She should be neither fully one nor the other. Babi didn't want to change. She wanted her mother. But it was Zaidi who went to the yeshiva to give the name. He stood before the rabbi and the congregation and named his daughter Tzipora Chasya. The rabbi told him not to do it. This one time, he didn't listen. The last thing he said to my mother, I should have let her have the name.
Thank you so much for that incredibly vulnerable and powerful reading, Batnadiv. That essay is in her forthcoming book, and I urge you all to get a hold of it. It's really beautiful. Now we have Evan Fallenberg, who is not only the chair of our department, but is also the fiction and literary translation coordinator. He has followed in Alan Hoffman's footsteps. He's taken over. I mean, we have such a small program. You can see everybody that was involved in it right here with us tonight. And that's really, really meaningful. Thank you all. Evan is going to introduce our next reader.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Marcella. And thanks, everyone. When I saw the list of readers, I thought, oh, this is going to be a great evening. And of course, it is. I want to say it's really exciting to look at all these faces, you know, for me, you know, more than a decade of people I work with in many ways, either as colleagues or as teachers and then friends. And it's wonderful to have all of you here. Marcella mentioned, gave credit, of course, to the people who are here with us who founded the program with Shaindy, Linda, and Alan, and Michael, who couldn't be here this evening. I'd like to just say thank you to Marcella and to Ilana Blumberg, because the two of them for the last dozen years have been running the creative writing program extraordinarily well, and it is thriving, as you all know. So thanks to both of you for all the hard work that you do all the time. I had the privilege of mentoring, first teaching and then mentoring Nicole. Nicole, I saw that surreptitious glass of wine there, which I think was just great. And I'm really sorry I'm with a mug of tea this evening, but I should be joining you with a glass of wine. You didn't tell me in advance. And Nicole wrote a short story in my workshop that just wouldn't stop. And in the best of ways, it became a really gorgeous novel that one day will be out there. It isn't out there yet, but it will be. And I can tell you, Nicole, as I tell everyone else here this evening, that that novel has really, really stuck with me. I remember whole big chunks of it, not just because we worked so hard and so long together on it, but because it's a really, really wonderful novel. And it will be out there. So Nicole has been very busy raising twin, now 3-year-olds. I can't believe that. And in the meantime, while she's doing that, doing a creative writing degree at the best program in England, UEA, University of East Anglia. And now she's back here with her family in Israel. So Nicole, please give us a great reading.
Thanks so much, Evan. It's so great to see you, and thanks for the introduction. I'm going to read from a short story of mine, just the first third, because of time, called Cake. The baby was sleeping when the front door slid open. Rachel was in the kitchen baking a cake, rummaging in the cupboards for icing sugar. She caught the movement out of the corner of her eye, and when she turned, the door gaped wide. If she stepped closer, she would see rubble around the other half-finished houses, the framework from construction throwing long shadows onto the street. Parked cars on the roads hulked like sleeping creatures. Rachel stood very still. Her pulse beat in her wrists. It was the wind, must be. She sometimes didn't close the door properly after she took the rubbish out, and it swung open, banging against the frame. She thought of Yossi's little chest, rising and falling in his cot upstairs. It was just the wind. Something told her not to go and close the door. The air conditioner hummed, ruffling the pages of the recipe book on the counter. She wanted to phone Cobby and wake him up just to hear the sound of his voice. But it was the middle of the night. She was being ridiculous. She needed to finish the icing while the cake was rising. She turned back to the oven, and there was a flash of something reflected in the black glass. She looked around, and there were 2 men in the entrance watching her. She closed her eyes, but when she opened them, they were still there. They wore black balaclavas, and it made the whites of their eyes too bright. Their knives bounced crisscross light off the walls. The taller and bulkier one stabbed a hand in the air. He said something to her, but she couldn't hear above the noise, above the rushing in her ears. He moved his arm, urging her to come towards them, and after a while, he went to get her. He pulled her roughly out of the kitchen, positioning her next to the dining room table. She smelled his aftershave, which was too sweet, like peppermint. Her arm throbbed even after he'd taken his hand away. The room shivered. "Stay here," he said. She gripped a chair. The man's eyes flitted about the space, the bare walls, the shiny white tiles, the wooden stairs rising behind them to the bedrooms. Cobby jokingly called their place the White House because of the pillars outside, how it stood out amongst the other houses obscured by scaffolding. Cobby, who had brought them here, to the middle of fucking nowhere, and who was right now sleeping in a 5-star hotel. She pressed her toes into the floor, clammy under her feet. The other man wandered around the kitchen, peering into the oven. His clothes sagged on his bony frame. "What are you making?" he called, but she had forgotten. A honey cake, maybe, for Rosh Hashanah? She couldn't even remember what day it was, what month it was. She opened her mouth to answer, but she couldn't reply. Cobby's espresso mug was still on the table from the morning, a ringed stain on the wood. Yossi's brightly coloured playmat was unfolded next to the sofa. The book she was reading splayed open, face down. The oven word, glowing. All in black, the men looked like cutouts, too grim and faceless to be real. "It smells good," the skinny one added, pointing at it with his knife. She didn't register the strangeness of what he'd said. The baby monitor was on the sofa. She could see Yossi's pixelated shape, still sleeping. He slept through doorbells, dogs barking, the construction of the new houses on the Moshav. If only he would stay like that. But Rachel's breasts had an achy tingle. She could feel them swelling, filling with milk. He would wake up soon to eat. "Watch her," the taller man said, and clattered up the stairs. She risked glancing behind her. He had that slope to his shoulders as if he was trying to make himself shorter, the way he scratched at the side of his face, then his knee. She had seen it before. She stared. He passed Yossi's room on the first floor landing, and she held her breath until he kept on going. A little shiver ran from her toes to her stomach. "So how have you been?" a voice said. The skinny one was standing right in front of her. She hadn't noticed him moving. His eyes were pale and glassy. Aside from a hint of grey, they were translucent. It's been what, 6 months? She gaped at him. Don't tell me you don't remember. He stepped closer. Above them, cupboards banged open and shut. He pulled off his balaclava, smoothing down his hair so it didn't stick up. He was in his 60s with a shock of curly hair. He must have dyed black. She realized now he was wearing hospital scrubs. Dr. Semach, she said. Her skin prickled, the hairs on her arms standing up. Finally, he said. He smiled to show her slightly disordered teeth. He craned his neck to look around. Nice place. What made you move to the desert? She cleared her throat, wet her lips with her tongue. Space, she managed. He nodded agreeably. You get more for your money out here, he said, but don't you miss Tel Aviv? Her throat was so dry she couldn't force out another word. What was he doing here, armed in her house? He couldn't be real. She wanted to stretch out and touch him to check, but she couldn't bring herself to do it. Couldn't pay me to live here, he said. All that sand gets in your shoes. She nodded. Her head felt heavy on her neck. She had a sudden image of Dr. Semach leaning over her, her legs in stirrups, a gown hitched over her hip. It looked like he was wearing the same hospital scrubs. Had he come straight from the hospital? Did he work nearby in Beersheva as well as Tel Aviv? Do you really think I'd do that drive to Beersheva? Dr. Semach asked. He clenched the knife handle. You're not listening. I already told you I can't stand the South. When will the cake be ready? 20 minutes, she said. She had to be dreaming. She could reach over and take the knife from him or walk past him to get to her son. But his legs looked solid, planted wide apart. He stood with his arms folded, assessing her. I'll stop there. That's the end of the first third. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicole. Where can we hear that? Where can we read the rest of it?
It's not out yet, but I'll let you know. Yeah.
Wonderful. All right. Is Iman Jamal here? I know that she really wanted to come and her baby got sick at the last minute. So she is with him in the hospital right now. Ilana, we will move on to you and Ellie with best wishes for Iman and her child.
Yeah.
I just want to add my thanks to Evans and say that soon after I arrived, Ilana was hired. And then with Ilana and Bill Kolbrenner, who is with his father tonight, we started the creative nonfiction track. And it has been such a wonderful addition to the program. Ilana also directed the program and she's just great.
Thank you, Marcella. That was very sweet. And thanks to Evan also. It's such a pleasure to be with all of you tonight and a real honor to get to introduce Ellie Jacobs. When I think of Ellie, I think of courage. Ellie has been writing for years now about some really difficult topics, difficult broadly, collectively, and also difficult personally. And he's never shied away from the hardest parts of them. And he has a gift of being able to share those things and thus encouraging other people to both listen appreciatively and also take the step to themselves plunge deep into their histories and into their families and try to make sense of things that often are quite difficult to make sense of. It's no surprise that one of his essays was selected as a nominee for Witness Magazine's prize. I have no doubt that Ellie will have other honors as he moves forward. And I'm really thrilled that he'll share a little bit of his work with us tonight. He is working on a memoir, and I'll let him take it from here.
Thank you, Ilana. So I'm going to read the last chapter of my book. It's called, the book is called The Blinding Light of AIDS, a memoir of family and religion, hiding and revealing. It's about myself and my two older brothers who passed away. Moshe died of cancer when he was 36 and I was 25. Danny died of AIDS when he was 39 and I was 31. They lived in New York, I was living in Israel, and I was religious. I was physically and emotionally disconnected and only came to mourn for my brothers decades later. A few of the chapters are written in the form of letters to Danny. Dear Danny, last night I saw the movie Bohemian Rhapsody and I sobbed through much of it. I sobbed because Freddie was alcoholic and self-destructive, and he reminded me of you. They say that the ending wasn't true. Live Aid wasn't Freddie's last show before his death. At the time, he didn't even know he had HIV, but it was the ending we needed. Freddie was not just another rock star. He was the one we were doing it for. And in exchange for our support, we got the power, the energy. Freddie in front of an audience of 80,000 on the edge of the stage, prompting us with his Deo Deos and praising our responses with his all right. We will rock you. Yes, Freddie, rock us. Danny, I wonder what it would take to make a Hollywood version of our story. At the real Live Aid, Freddie Mercury didn't know that he had HIV. In the Hollywood version, he does, and we, the audience, have the satisfaction of knowing too. Look at him. He has AIDS and will be dead soon, but look at the power it gives him. Freddie is singing his heart out. His voice comes from deep in his lungs and from the depths of his humanity. He sings for himself and he sings for us. I've done my sentence, but committed no crime. Hasn't each of us felt unjustly punished at some time? Freddie declares championship, victory over persecution, illness, hate, and tragedy, and he includes us. Freddie was queen and he crowned us. We are the champions and we mean to go on and on and on. Danny, how about this for our movie version? On screen, we see you and Gary from behind holding hands at an exhibit at the Whitney in 2020. Gary can still be Gary, but you are different. You are alive. From flashbacks to the 1980s, we learned that a cure was found and the pandemic ended after only a few months. Then there was a gay revolution. Society grew up. Everyone accepted and respected the other. Now in 2020, in your 60s, you are a senior editor at The New Yorker, or of a new magazine, The Gay New Yorker, or The Proud New Yorker, and I am the ally editor. I write stories and flash nonfiction about people who have had the good fortune of being close to a gay person, partners in their success, survival, and victory. Or if we don't want to overdo it, in our Hollywood version, you still die in 94, and AIDS was still catastrophic, but our story plays out differently. The facts don't have to change because unlike Freddie at Live Aid, you did know. The night we spent with the body of our brother Moshe after the cancer got him, you already knew that you were carrying a killer virus inside you. In our version, it is the timeline of my life and my knowing that shifts. In our version, I know how to see you and I know how to hear you. In our version, when you come out, rather than replying with religious stoicism, I ask you to tell me more. How did you discover that you preferred men? Wasn't that impossible in our family in yeshiva in the 1970s? When you tell me that you have HIV rather than, I know, I say, oh my God, Danny, I'm coming to the States. When the end comes, I'll be there with you. In our version, I am there, emotionally present, not dissociated, not disconnected. When you shiver on the night that we sit with our brother's ice-covered corpse, I understand and I hug you and hold you. In 1992, when you sang at your last cabaret show, The Bitter Pill, you knew, and the audience knew, and in the Hollywood version, I know too. The lighting in the club is soft, amber, and warm. You sing Sondheim tunes and numbers from the Fantastics. I sit near the stage. You stand, arms at your sides, and sing in the baritone that I used to think was hammy and overwrought, but that now sounds pure and powerful, as if it rises from your depths. Try to remember the kind of September when life was slow and oh so mellow. Your voice is far away and familiar. I hear you, I see you. And now I know how to be a brother. and I hope I know how to be a human being. You turn and see me seeing you, and at that moment, you know that even though you've been alienated and rejected by so many, and even though you lost your brother Moshe, you still have another brother. You finish the song. Try to remember, then follow, and if you remember, then follow, follow, follow. You smile, take a bow, step off the stage and approach my table. I stand. You wrap your arms around me and I wrap mine around you. I lower my head to your shoulder and we stand there, just like that, in the warm amber light.
Thank you so much. It strikes me as you're reading that one of the things that writing does is to help us become brothers, sisters, human beings. That was very powerful. Thank you for sharing it.
Thank you.
We have one more reader tonight, and that is Yoni Hammer-Kossoy. And I think Linda will agree with me that one of the most powerful things we can do as teachers is to train people to be teachers. I know that Yoni has studied with both Jane Medved and Joanna Chen, and they are carrying on the traditions that and the tasks that we gave them tools to do, that gave them tools to handle. Sorry, I'm running out of vocabulary. It's the end of the semester. But I just want to acknowledge that Yoni also studied with Joanna and Jane, and they contributed greatly to this book that he has coming out. Yoni is a poet, translator, and educator, and his writing appears in numerous international journals and anthologies. He won the 2020 Andrea Mariah Prize in Poetry, and his first collection, which is his thesis, which he just defended in October, is called The Book of Noah, and it will be published this year by Grayson Books. I want to say about this book that it is a wonderful combination of midrash and eco-poetry, environmental poetry, and Yoni's background in, I guess, high-tech engineering has put to good use. It just shows a complete person here. So thank you, Yoni.
Thank you. Such a pleasure to be here, and I want to, I come last, so I get to echo what everybody else has said in terms of how amazing it is to be part of this wonderful program. So I'll start. Yeah, part of writing this book, this collection, was at some level a process of talking to Noah and trying to hear what he had to say. This first poem is called Dear Noah. The days stack like coins on a scale, and summer tips toward another end. You feel it in the August heat. You hear it in the burr of cicadas and flap of sparrows snatching grapes from a stunted vine in the garden. I used to think people talk about weather because they're afraid of silence. But what did you say when you came in for dinner, sawdust on your shoulders and stuck in your beard, and your wife said, "Please, that's enough. Don't tell me your generation refused to see the towering anvil clouds even after it started raining, and I won't tell you it's too late for mine. I'm trying to find a voice that doesn't push away, that hews to beauty, but my optimism has become like a last rhino in captivity. We have forests and towns that combust under a fist of sun. We have mosaics of dread laid one tessera by one. We have satellites winking far above, supercomputers predicting short-term doom and long-term destruction. I'm calling out to you, Noah, because you saw everything wash away and begin again, because I want to know if there's more to do now than build a bigger boat and keep a neater zoo. This next poem, part of the joy of this program has been the variety of different classes, and one class that I really loved was the documentary poetry, which I took with Marcella, and gave me a chance to explore all sorts of approaches. And one was really digging into a topic. This is called the smell of rain. But there was never a simple way to call the smell of rain until 1964, when two Australian scientists coined petrichor, combining Greek for stone and blood of the gods. Petrichor was eventually tied to an organic compound called geosmin, which gets thrown into the air when water droplets hit dry ground and plants. People can detect geosmin in traces as low as 400 parts per trillion, meaning human beings are more attuned to the smell of rain than a shark is to blood. They say the human nose can smell a trillion combinations of odors. They say a bloodhound's nose is 10 to 100 million times more sensitive than a human's, capable of following a missing child's trail into the past, if not the future. I try to grasp 1 trillion, but like yearning, it's either too big or too small to comprehend. There are 1 trillion galaxies in a stripe of midnight sky. There are 1 trillion molecules of water in the tiniest drop of rain. I asked the internet about the purpose of smell, and it tells me to go for a walk in the rain. It tells me anosmia means loss of smell, which sounds like insomnia or amnesia and makes me think of forgetting how to sleep, forgetting everything I know. The first thing Noah does when he leaves the ark is build an altar and offer sacrifices, but he never weeps. He says God smells the pleasing odor and promises not to destroy the world again. And I think of philosophers wrangling for centuries over such brazen anthropomorphism with no comment about Noah's dry-eyed silence. I think of how namelessly good the air must have smelled the day when light drizzle became the flood. On the last night of summer, I lie awake as the wind flips the neighbor's laundry rack and rattles the backyard trees. Months of pent-up dust and heat disperse in a snap. Rain spatters through the open window, and I breathe in the smell like a promise. Last poem. This is called I Am Mute as a Gopher Tree. I am mute as a gopher tree. The wind blows and I shake my branches at a blank sky. If only fire would sweep this hillside so I could sing. I am the man who planted me, little boy at his side, the grandson who comes back, axe in hand. I am the axe, the keen edge, the unmaker, the reshaper. I am the fall, forever falling, felled. I am the green relief from standing. I am the wedge, the mallet, the split that solves the puzzle of opening me. Here are my rings, densely spaced, uncountable. Here is my heartwood, first to be discarded, soft and twisted after years of tracking the sun. I am the second cut that leaves me in quarters, the slow work that shapes me into beams, into planks. I am the calloused hands, the stick of sap, the long paths of grain joined in place, the dimming memory of rain in whirls and sanded knots. The ark is sealed tight, but has no rudder. I am not what I dreamed I might be. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks so much, Yoni. I want to end tonight with a couple of requests. If you have books that are coming out, if you have significant publications, let me know. And we would like to feature more alumni in our future readings. Stay in touch. Keep us informed about anything that you're doing, and we will help amplify your accomplishments. And the last thing is that we are currently reading for reading applications for the next year. So if you know anybody that might enjoy this program, send them our way. Stay in touch, everyone. Thank you so much for making this program so amazing and special. And we look forward to reading your work. One more thing, I put in the chat box the bios that everybody wrote me so that you can look and find the books that everyone is reading from tonight when they come out. Have a good night. Anybody want to add anything? All right. Good night, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Good night.